You've had charges now hanging over your head, so to speak, for some months, and now more serious charges. As time goes on and as you become more deeply entwined in this matter, have your feelings changed, or are they changing toward the entire case?
Toward the case?
Toward the entire matter.
I can't regret having done what I knew at the time to be what I ought to do, my duty as a citizen. I have no way that I can regret that.
You're not having any second thoughts about your action now, is that right?
Oh, certainly not.
Dr. Ellsberg, at a recent press conference, you said you were willing to accept any responsibility or anything that came for your part in the Pentagon Papers. The latest indictment says a 115-year prison term and a $120,000 fine for maximum. Are your thoughts still the same, that you're willing to accept any consequences?
I have two thoughts about that. I go back to my earlier answer. How can you measure the jeopardy that I'm in? Whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 115 years, or other ludicrous amounts like that. To the penalty that has been paid already by 50,000 American families here and hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese families. It would be absolutely presumptuous of me to pity myself in that context, and I certainly don't, and I'd be ashamed of myself.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Rescue Mission Weekly live stream. That was the great Daniel Ellsberg, who just passed away from pancreatic cancer this week. And for anyone who's not familiar with that whole story, he was the version of the Texas Air National Guardsman Jack Teixeira or Edward Snowden, who deliberately leaked to the media government documents that he had access to that showed that the government had been lying about everything relating to the Vietnam War, and that we weren't actually winning the war as we were claiming up and down. We were actually losing it. And he had been charged and would not have been able to present the defense that he was doing it for the good of the country or anything like that, and ended up, I guess you'd say, getting off on a technicality. The technicality was the government spied on they got a hold of his psychological records, and we're going to try to use his private conversations with a psychologist against him in the court throughout the case at that point. So he became a free man, but kind of has some relevance today, doesn't it, with these the horrible news about Julian Assange being extradited, and of course this other guy, the Pentagon leaks, as they call them, disclosing, that we're losing a war that we're saying we're winning. So there was that little thing. But anyway, how you guys doing? Hey, Patty, how are you? Happy Father's
Hey, how you
Day.
doing?
I'm doing great. It's been a busy week. We had a Wednesday show, so I don't know how many topics we got to cover tonight, but I think we actually got plenty because there is so much going on. Mm-hmm. So we do have some things to go over. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen our last two shows, have been Boffo episodes. First with the whole talking about the presidential primary being changed, which actually, Patty, you just sent me some news about that. I was looking today, that's because I was seeing, because there's been a bit of pushback on this, but it sounds like the story is already kind of dying off in the media. You don't see the media acting like this is some crazy attack on democracy. Like, I think they've realized that this is not a play that would work for them in the long run. But there was something that you brought to my attention today, so I'm going to put this up on the screen.
Yeah, like who started these tactics? Our side or the Democratic side?
Yeah, there's this comment from I don't know who this is, Eric Jackman, whoever that is, saying Democrats in Iowa, New Hampshire could defy Biden and move ahead with their contest, even as the party warns it will strip them of national convention delegates if they jump the gun. That sets up a scenario in which RFK Jr. could win those states and embarrass the president. Interesting.
So we're not our national committee is not the only one that does it, I guess, huh?
In the Democrats' case, they are, well, in our case, the problem was the party wanted to be too respectful of the early states and not let anyone move their contests up. In the Democrats' case, they wanted to make sure that South Carolina went first, so that they would rig the South Carolina primary as they did in 2020. Mm-hmm. And then have everything cascade after that the way it did. Remember, before South Carolina in 2020, Joe Biden was in the toilet. He lost badly in Iowa. He lost badly in New Hampshire. And the minute after South Carolina's polls closed, everybody else just dropped out of the race. Amy Klobuchar dropped out of the race. Pete Buttigieg dropped out of the race. That was
I forgot she was running. Klobuchar? Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They did have quite a bit.
In Iowa and New Hampshire.
She what?
She pulled better than Biden in Iowa and New Hampshire, I believe.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. But somehow she didn't think she had a political future after one state, South Carolina. Isn't it amazing how that works? So anyway, happy Father's Day, everybody. I guess we did want to talk a little bit about, it is important to remember the importance of fatherhood and the responsibility of it that too many men neglect. But there's an interesting contrast between these presidential candidates that we've got right now. So I don't know. And Patty, you brought this topic to my attention. So I don't know if you want to kick this off, but I do have some.
Well, it just reminded me, I saw a couple clips. Robert Barnes on his Hush Hush did something about the sins of the father or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a half an hour segment. I just sent you the short clip on that.
Yeah, here, I'll play the clip. Here we go. This is talking about RFK.
Of course, maybe not. Not only is this story not the case of the sins of the father visiting the sons, or even such sins existing in the first place, maybe it's a different story. As Robert Kennedy Jr. launches his presidential campaign, attacking Big Pharma, attacking Big Food, attacking the central mechanisms of deep state power in America, blaming them for the assassination of his father, blaming them for the assassination of his uncle, President John Kennedy, saying that they are the purge and the cancer that must be cut out for America constitutional liberty to survive. Maybe the story ultimately of the Kennedy legacy is not that the sins of the father will be visited upon the son, but maybe it's that the sins against the father will be remembered and revenged by the son.
Oh, what do you make of that?
Well, the first part of the clip, which I didn't include, obviously, it was too long. It was like half an hour, was how like everything we know or we think we know about John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy and even the grandpa, Joseph P. Right, could have, if it was all like deep state, like what do we know if it's really true that they were doing all these bad things? Aside from the woman stuff, but
I could do a lot of talking about the JFK assassination. I don't know all that much about RFK.
So then that's basically what he's saying. And then if you listen to RFK's speeches and when he talks about it, it just feels like he's trying to avenge them or something. You know what I mean? In addition to like trying to save, his party and his side. So that's that point. As far as
Robert F. Kennedy was poised to take that Democrat nomination before he was murdered.
Right. And after that, didn't Johnson dropped out, right?
Yeah.
Or during the primary, I think. Yeah. So there's that. And then even going back to like 2015, 2016, even like some of the craziest people I know that had Trump derangement syndrome would always say, well, the one good thing I can say about him is he raised great kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Donald Trump.
Remember that was like the one positive that they would always say, or that, that they'd say about him. And
there were a few times when the Democrats would try to attack his kids, even Barron Trump, and those always just backfired.
Yeah, they did, but for the most part, I'm talking more about like personal conversations, maybe though too, but yeah. So, and but then at the same time, he's flawed, obviously, 3 marriages, womanizing on his part too, but, so, these are the kind of dad that we have, Ron DeSantis, 3 young kids, we have some fathers in the race and like evaluate them based on that. It's important.
And then we have this guy.
Right. Contrasting with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, we'd be here all night if we were to rehash every crazy thing about the Biden family, but it is, I think, worth remembering a few things. And I do think it is fair to hold Joe Biden to the raising of his children. In fact, he seems to have had a direct role in some of those things. For example, there was this, this Ashley Biden diary talking about how she thinks she's a sex addict because she was molested at a young age. Showers with my dad, probably not appropriate. No, that's not appropriate. That's insane. That's disgusting. That's child sexual abuse. Joe Biden is a pedophile and a sex criminal. According to his own daughter. But then there's this other story too. This just happened. And it's interesting. James Woods called this out. This is a Fox News headline. Fox got into some hot water this week, by the way. We should mention that. I'll put that up on the screen in a couple minutes here, but one topic at a time. So this was a Fox News headline. They have changed this headline, and probably because James Woods pointed out, he's called Biden's son in the headline. She's dismissed as ex-stripper, the ex-stripper that that Hunter Biden was having an affair with. And by the way, the stripper was the side piece. The person he was dating at the time was his dead brother's widow.
Right.
And and the most amazing thing too is that he's in court to demand the court prohibit the mother from giving the child the last name Hunter, which a paternity test has proven it's his child. And to this day, Biden fails to acknowledge this grandchild. And
they won't even put our stocking up. Yeah.
Yep,
It's like crazy.
Also, the other thing is this article says he only acknowledged 6 of his 7 grandchildren. There's some story a year or two ago when he actually thought he had 5 grandchildren when he had 7. So there's the one he was actively ignoring and the one he forgot about.
So anyway, that was just, since it is Father's Day or whatever, that kind of was going through my mind, like these different men and what kind of dads are they?
And I think too it's important to say that there are a lot of partisan issues with Democrats and Republicans. We don't agree on things, but then there's also the fact that a lot of people in politics are true sociopaths, and it comes out in their kids often, not always, but often. And Joe Biden is an example of that in his entire crime family. By the way, speaking of Joe Biden, he had another interesting senior moment this week. I don't know if you guys have seen this clip, but I thought it was funny. So I'm gonna put this. This is a short clip. I got to play this.
We have plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean.
We have plans to build a railroad from the Pacific all the way across the Indian Ocean.
Well, he definitely.
Oh God.
He definitely has big aspirations, that's for sure. A railroad across the Pacific and Indian Oceans.
Is it going to be high speed or what? Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be spectacular. So,
oh my goodness.
Although not as bad as John Fetterman was. Should I play that clip too?
I haven't watched it. I saw it come through my feed, but I wouldn't turn the volume on. I just couldn't.
Yeah. Oh man, it was bad. Actually, I remember if I'm going to try to open that window, it's going to be dead air. I'm figuring out the sound on Twitter and all that crap. So I'll skip it. But if you haven't seen that clip from John Fetterman with Biden this week, it was incredible. The guy couldn't put a sentence together. The captions were like, "Only Joe Biden thinks this guy's making a word of sense."
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely nuts. So, anyway, all that to say, I think. And especially within the GOP too, between Trump and DeSantis, a lot of people have really strong emotions, and we have to point out that these are two good people. And politics does get in the way of things a lot of the time. And also too, like I said, I don't agree with RFK on a lot of things, but he's a decent person, and having him rather than Joe Biden be the nominee would be a great protection against a second term of a sociopath criminal in the White House. So who might take us into World War III? So.
Right. Did you see the word clouds that were going around? They polled like 1,000 people with we do these at work all the time. We were like, tell us, especially during COVID, how are you feeling? And you have to say some words, and then as more people say the same words, that word gets bigger. So they did that between Biden and Trump, and then between Trump and DeSantis. I don't know. I saw it on Twitter as well. The different. And so Biden was old and incompetent, and Trump was criminal. I don't remember what it was.
This is what people were saying about them.
Yeah, like you basically you were given a question, and then you put in a word, and then as more people say the same word, like that word will be more prominent in this screen. Yeah,
I mean, I think some people think. I mean, obviously Democrats do think that Trump's criminal, but I think this whole indictment's blown up in their faces. It sounds like a lot of people are not buying it, and.
Oh my God! Did you watch Charlie Duff on Thursday?
No. What did he say?
He had this guy on from the New York Times, Alan Feuer, Feuer. Oh my God! It was such a joke. He was talking about how Trump would carry around his document. He'd call them his beautiful mind documents, like the movie. Like it was hot garbage, to quote Garrett Soldano. It was so stupid.
Yeah.
It was it was getting planned on Twitter and Facebook.
I am very suspicious of Charlie LaDuff's overall intentions, honestly. I know he did some good stuff on the Whitmer, the nursing
Well,
home
in the same
scandal.
episode, he starts it off talking about how he's being censored, and then he turns around and has this clown on.
Yeah.
And he's like lapping it up. And I'm like, anyway.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, he is from the mass media. And I mean, we saw the freak out that Nolan Finley had over the primary, although it seems to me like people are getting over this and it's not the huge scandal at all that people thought it was going to be. So, but anyway, but that's what we were talking about earlier about this, Trump versus DeSantis thing, I think is maybe a good segue into the topic I want to get to this week, which is the mob mentality that's going around a lot in the MAGA movement. And we saw it spectacularly this past week. You remember it was on our show, I think it was, right? When we talking about this Thomas Massie voting no on censoring Adam Schiff. Did we talk about that last Sunday? I know I talked about it with Shane on Wednesday. It may have been Wednesday. I think it probably was Wednesday, actually, because I think that happened this week.
Yeah, I think it was after Sunday.
But it was funny because I was talking to Shane about this, and I was like, I withhold judgment on Massey's vote on the debt ceiling deal because he's a really sharp guy, and if he's voting no on something or voting a certain way, even though it doesn't make sense to me, there might be something that I'm.
The debt ceiling. Yeah, that was the other
missing
vote.
in the picture.
There was 2 votes lately that he's just getting slammed on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that was what I said about the first one, but then when it came to this other one, I didn't take my own advice, and I said on the show, obviously it's inexcusable that Massey didn't vote for censuring Adam Schiff. Well, that was what I thought at the time. Now the truth has come out in the wash, which is that there was this little business here. Here, let me pull it up. The main difference was it wasn't just a censure vote; it was also to fine him $16 million. So that changes the dynamic quite a lot. Here is Anna Paulina Luna, who supported it and going against Massey. Massey says this: allowing a majority of Congress to take $16 million from any member of Congress is short-sighted. Can we not imagine a time when this precedent would be used against conservatives? Fortunately, it failed. I'm told the constitutional version will be offered now. And it wasn't in this tweet, but someplace else, Massey also brought up the point that they are right now litigating Nancy Pelosi's fining them for refusing to follow their mask mandates in Congress in the past year. So think about this now. If they're litigating the Democrats fining the Republicans for not wearing masks, well, then this happens. Wasn't the court going to say, well, but you guys just did this too? I mean, that's the whole losing of the moral high ground right there, is now that we do it because they're doing it, now we're doing it.
And what happens if the Democrats win? What if Pelosi wins that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I mean, this is congressional blackmail.
That's what I mean. Exactly. Which means, what do? They keep violating the Constitution and daring us to take them to court, just like the mandates, all these things. They know. Biden stood up there on that stage and said, I'm basically saying, I know this is unconstitutional. He did that vaccine mandate anyway, right? They don't care. And they go and then they win. So then what happens then? They set the precedent. Right? What do? We take the moral high ground, which we know, okay, yeah, it's constitutional, but we lose in the long run. So how
do we win? What do we win by fining Adam Schiff? And by the way, let me just be clear about this. Adam Schiff is a pathological liar. Adam Schiff has damaged our country's national security with his lies. Adam Schiff should be expelled from Congress. But fining a member of Congress is another thing. It damages the Constitution. It's probably also unconstitutional as a bill of attainder because they're targeting an individual without trial, and it's an action by the government. And every weapon they use against us, once we legitimize it, it can be used again. They could prevail in this lawsuit and say, no, Congress can't do that. But once you've taken the bait, perfect other example was the 2 sham impeachments of Donald Trump. And Republicans don't need sham reasons to impeach Democrats. They could have impeached Gretchen Whitmer for willful neglect of duty. They could have done that for Dana Nessel. They could have impeached Joe Biden for bombing the critical infrastructure of a U.S. ally. They don't need to resort to unconstitutional shams for impeachment. But what the Republicans in Lansing did was they wrote impeachments of Whitmer, and they didn't argue that she knowingly was blackmailing the state, saying, I'm going to lock you down more because of your demonstrations, and then proved by her actions subsequently that she didn't believe a word of it because she protested at Black Lives Matter events. There's all kinds of charges you can make out of willful neglect of duty and abuse of resources and that kind of thing.
But we did not.
But the Republicans didn't bother making that argument. They just made the argument it was bad policy. And once you open that gate, now that's an even lower standard of impeachment than the Democrats had when they impeached Trump. Because now it's not even, I mean, their allegations of wrongdoing were fallacy, but now arguing that you can impeach somebody just for bad policy is even more dangerous.
But they keep doing it. And it keeps getting passed. And now they can say he's twice impeached. And then we just keep losing.
Those are separate events. We lost because we failed. We lost because people don't go out and knock on doors. We lost because people don't know how to mobilize. They don't know how to organize. And frankly, you know, as bad as the results were last year, there's only a certain amount of it that can be attributed to cheating. A lot of it was just us being dummies. And if we think that lowering the constitutional threshold is going to do any good, I don't see how it does. And the other thing I want to talk about too is the rhetorical escalation that we see from people in the MAGA movement. So here's, for example, this is Cat Turd. And by the way, it should be pointed out, Thomas Massie is one of the very few real heroic conservatives in Washington. This is the guy who, he was the only one who's still in Washington who didn't vote for the resolution to impose sanctions on Russia for manipulating the 2016 election. There was only 3 no votes. 2 of them are out of Congress now. Every single other Republican in Washington went along with the Democrats' talking points on that. Massie was the only one to vote no on the COVID relief. There's actually somewhere here I've got a list of all these times when Thomas Massie was the only Republican to vote the correct way on a number of bills. And nevertheless, because Cat Turd disagrees with Massie, he says, you're a cowardly, spineless traitor. Traitor. I mean, this is the same rhetoric the Democrats are using, and we're going on the exact same trail here. Here you got this guy, DC Drano, and he's got these 2 headlines. No context at all. This is an article from 2013. So what's this in reference to? We don't know. He doesn't tell us. But he says, Massie helped destroy the Tea Party, and now he's trying to destroy MAGA. He protects Adam Schiff while mocking MAGA voters. I think this is in reference to Massie made a joke. I stepped on the cat turd. He voted with Democrats to raise the debt ceiling. Again, Massie's perspective is that that's a good policy, and I think we should withhold judgment until we see how that ultimately plays out. So he calls him a fraud, a wolf in sheep's clothing, says he helped to destroy the Tea Party. And what is the long-term effect of language like this going to be? And I think there's a couple of things. The first thing is what politicians are realizing is, just like the Democrats, who will punish any heresy by their own members, no matter what it is, this is how these folks are operating as well. They hear one thing they don't like, and the first thing they do is they call them traitor. Vote these guys out, primary this guy, yada yada. And the lesson to all these politicians coming in their first terms is there's no pleasing these people. I do one thing that they don't like, even if it's the right thing, in my view, and they're going to call me a traitor. So suddenly, what's all their inclination going to be? It's like, well, the establishment they don't mind. The establishment has an attitude that we're all a team and we're all just trying to get everyone reelected and keep our majority. And they're like, I like those guys. I like the lobbyists more than I like the Tea Party grassroots MAGA patriot types. That's the lesson they're taking away. And it's all going to go down ballot too. It's going to result in the same thing that happened in the past cycle, where there's this war between the grassroots and the establishment, which the establishment, don't get me wrong, the establishment has to buckle a little bit too, because they're part of the problem. But when our side goes this way, all they're doing at the end of the day is we're going to end up with a Democrat majority. And I will never say to someone, don't withhold your vote if they did the wrong thing. I mean, I will never, if I lived in South Carolina, I would never vote for Lindsey Graham, ever. And I would never blame anybody for, in their conscience, saying, I'm going to hold the Republicans accountable. I mean, you see what we have on our website. We give half the Republicans failing grades. But if you're gonna do that, be right in what you're doing. And in this case, I think they're completely wrong about this, because Massie is right. once you start breaking the rules, once you embrace the rules, you can't go back and then say, well, oh, that impeachment of Donald Trump was a sham. Well, but you guys impeached Gretchen Whitmer for a BS reason. You've lost the moral high ground. And that's what they're surrendering. And that's my rant for the night. I don't know. You tell me I'm wrong, Patty. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't agree. I think we're too wussy. I think Republicans are too wussy. I don't know.
I think there's plenty of ways to fight that don't involve being wussy, and that's the problem with this resolution. I mean, they could push for expulsion even, but saying I'm going to fine Adam Schiff $16 million. By the way, Adam Schiff's not going to care about. This is congressional pay we're talking about. It's going to make him a hero. He's going to come out and say, look at this. The Republicans tried to fine me. This is all going to backfire on us. If that had passed, it would backfire tremendously. Schiff can go out and say the Republicans did this, and look what disrespect they have for the Constitution. They talk about caring for the Constitution. They don't give a crap about the Constitution. They just want to punish me for blah, blah, blah. And of course, he's going to spin it the way he would. But I mean, that is what happened.
How does he spin it? I didn't do anything wrong. Either way, he's coming out ahead, right?
Well, what's going to happen next is what it sounds like is there will be a censure vote without the.
Say we had bipartisan support to not censure Adam Schiff, right? So either way,
no, because the censure is coming anyway. In fact, that's actually what Catchard was reacting to. In fact, you can tell Massey's needling him a bit. Trump is using words like one might use a laser pointer with a cat.
I don't understand this voting versus voted. I don't know.
So here's what he's saying, because there will be a vote next week with the fine removed, just a straight censure. In fact, some people in the chat have been pointing this out already. Yeah. They've modified the censure so that they're going to get those votes. So here's what his point is. Trump slams Republicans who voted to block censure, but Trump is saying any Republican voting against his censure, which sounds like it's not in the past tense anymore, because there will be a vote coming up to censure Adam Schiff, and when that vote passes, Trump's gonna take a victory lap, as Massey says. He wants to look like a boss if/when it passes, which is Trump's pattern too. He always takes credit for things that happen, and then, with when his staffers betray him, then that was a complete idiot, loser, moron. Never should have hired him, but you did. So that's kind of the way things go with Trump, unfortunately.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. So that's what Massey's getting at there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, go after rhinos all day long, every day. When good guys make mistakes, call it out, so they won't make them a second time. But going after your champions like that is dangerous. And Massey is a champion. Massey's the sponsor of the audit the Fed bill. Massey's the sponsor of a lot of very important bills. And we have a rule in politics, which is that you always must protect your champions, because if you don't, you won't have any champions in the future. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunately what's going to happen with a lot of these MAGA people is they're going to start wanting to make, if Republicans get majority in, the other chamber or in Michigan or elsewhere, they say, well, we want this and this and this, and they're going to be like, no, thanks. I don't want to work with you guys, because you'll throw me under the bus for any other thing I do someday, and that's a problem in the long term. So, that's why, like on the Rescue Michigan scorecard, I'll pull it up again. I showed this off on the show on Wednesday, because we do have some more votes on the board, but there's a wide range. If you look at the Republicans, we have them everywhere between 100% and 4%. We've got people, Michelle Hoytinga, Thomas Albert, Jonathan Lindsay, Jim Runstead at 100%, Lana Tyson, Rick Outman close to it, and then we've got a whole bunch of rhinos who are in the negative 26%, 33%, 48% scores. So, you're drawing a contrast. You're saying, okay, if you do good, and we're not going to hold you to every single, every last vote you've ever taken, then we'll make you look good, and someone's going to be made to look bad. Oh, I don't have this up on my screen. I'm talking about this. I'm not showing it. Whoops. Yeah, there's the scorecard in the Senate. So you can see what I mean here, where we've got, some Republicans are doing the right thing and their scores are outstanding. And those are the ones you want to protect, not the ones you want to attack. You want the guys you want to attack are guys like Joe Bellino.
What's Joe Baby up to? Or 16?
I
Positive
don't
or
know.
negative? That's his district, 16. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where's the score? I'm sorry. Oh, 4%. Okay.
Yeah, he's at 4%. So, and yeah, we added in the hunting and fishing guides licensure. A lot of them got tagged for that. And the one to make hair a civil right. Shane and me talked about that on Wednesday's show.
Oh, hairstyle?
Yeah. Yeah.
That just came up in Texas too, I think. Did I just read something about that? Yeah.
Here's the other thing too I'd say about this whole issue is it's not even just the politicians, it's bleeding into the grassroots. And this is what we see happen all the time. Like when Matt DePerno was running for attorney general and his campaign is handing out cards saying, ask every precinct delegate if they're voting for Matt DePerno. If they're not, they're a rhino. You know, and what it's leading to is, I mean, this is what's causing the intense factionalization of the grassroots. It's a divide and conquer strategy, and it's bitter and nasty in a lot of places. I mean, there's a couple of conservatives. I won't mention who it is, but some people will know what the story is, where these two state lawmakers were both in the grassroots beforehand, and they had some kind of fight over a table, over who owns a folding table. And to this day, they're carrying, that beef is still going on between those two factions. And it's like, you know, you guys don't want to try to get reelected and not worry about the stupid table.
Yeah.
But that's the way that goes. And you guys have to decide what's important and what's not. And to me, the Constitution is important, and doing things in a proper manner, because, you know, you say, well, you know, the other side doesn't play by the rules. Well, if we get to the point where there are no rules, then there's no country anymore. Then there's no republic. If the Constitution is meaningless, we are now a democracy. Don't you guys afraid of being a democracy? Because that's what that becomes.
But it's only meaningful to us, not them. That's the problem, right? We say, oh, the Constitution, but it's unconstitutional. And they laugh in our face. Then what?
Well,
right?
And then it's our job to show the voters what the damage they're doing to the foundations of our republic are. And it's our job to point out that they're destroying the legal system as we know it. They're destroying the Bill of Rights. They're destroying presidential records. They're making it so that the president's going to be bound and gagged by a deep state. I mean, that's the death knell of our country. And if we can't go out and teach people why that's a problem, then you might as well throw in the towel.
Well, if we're going to do that, you got to find a way to do it for that. I don't want to say average, you know, but yeah, the average person who isn't a political junkie, right? Who maybe just like the headlines, right? To them, you know, we go talk to them and they like glaze over because they're like, whoa, what are you even talking about? Especially if they've never even heard one, Pete, because they only watch mainstream, right?
Yeah, I mean, what you need to do is you need to do what it takes to win and let these atrocities harden you and make you more determined to go out and knock on doors. By the way, I knocked on doors yesterday. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, we had a lot of great conversations and we had almost no negative interactions at all. Like one person just said, I'm a Democrat, so don't bother. But they weren't rude. But going door to door and talking to people, met a lot of people who were like, thank you for being here. You know, people we're going to follow up with, people we're going to want to engage with. We went out, I think it was 5 of us, and we went out mostly in pairs. 2, and 1. And we just hit a subdivision. We used that lit piece. I've showed off the lit piece before, the Reggie Miller hit piece. And the walk lists that you can get at rescuemichigan.com. We organized the streets so we could just go from one to the next. Actually, one of the guys that was walking with us, the one that went by himself, he was the candidate for state rep in the last cycle, and he's going to run for re-election. He's going to run again, so he went out by himself. When I showed him Dale Benicki, yeah.
Oh, good.
And when I showed him the ink and paper list, he's like, "Oh, good. I hate that freaking Sidekick app. This is so much better." I was like, "I know."
Yeah, Sidekick's awful.
Yeah. Everybody thinks that apps are the way to go, and I'm telling them no. It really isn't. And you can find a volunteer who doesn't want to knock on doors, who's willing to do some data entry, but being able to have a piece of paper, it's so much better. So anyway, but yeah, it was very nice. And I want to do a lot more doors. You know, knocking on doors for the first time is like going to the gym for the first time. It's really hard to make yourself do it. But then it gets easier because then you want to go back.
Work out for 10 minutes, and then if you really want to quit, you stop, right? But then typically once you start, you keep going.
Yeah. Well, we went for like 2 hours. What we did is we got together at a restaurant and kind of talked about things. That's an important thing too to get started. Is first get everyone together to meet at a place and get psyched up and what the lit piece says, and talk about what you're going to say at the doors, what the action step is. And then after 30 minutes, we went out, we knocked on doors for 2 hours, came back, met it back up at the restaurant, and debriefed and talked about how it all went. And it was really good. Carl Kirsch says, perhaps I would only hold my vote for the GOP candidate if indeed the opposition candidate fit the principles of the conservative movement better. See, to me, Carl, that's the opposite extreme. I think there has to be some point where Republicans have to say, as the case with Lindsey Graham, I'm not going to support a worker. I'm not going to give my vote to you. I mean, if nothing else, withhold your vote rather than, I'm not going to say vote for the Democrat or anything like that. But I mean, the best example was John McCain versus Barack Obama. What do you think would have happened if we'd gotten John McCain elected president? We'd had almost the exact same policy. They have the exact same foreign policy. They're both globalists. The only difference is, and of course now we all know what a slimeball John McCain is. Mm-hmm. The difference would have been you would have had no Tea Party movement because you wouldn't have had Barack Obama to push back against. And once these rhinos get in, it's really, really hard to get them out. So, and by the way, that's the Democrats' mindset. When they have problems with their candidates, they will run a Green Party challenger. They'll run a primary challenger. There was a district in Colorado where there was a Democrat there. I forget his name, but he wasn't good. The Democrats didn't like him on the global warming issues. So they took a pass. They let the Green Party guy get like 10% of the vote. A Republican came in. 2 years later, it's still a liberal district. Mm-hmm. Democrats ran. It was either Mark or Bob Udall. I forget which one it is. One of the Udall brothers, who was 110% in support of all the green crap. And so they got the seat back after 2 years. And the party got the message. Same went with, there was a district in Los Angeles where there was this guy, Matty Martinez, who was a congressman, who was like 90% with the unions. Now, we've had a lot of union issues that were voted on in this cycle, haven't we? We've had the right to work repeal, the prevailing wage mandate, all these crazy bills we've looked at before. So Matty Martinez was one of these Democrats who voted no on like one of the most extreme union bills. So what they do, they primaried him. And when they knocked him out, the union boss said, look, Matty wasn't a guy who was anti-union, but this is a blue-collar district, and we expect better. And the primary challenger that got in, Hilda Solis, went on to become Obama's labor secretary. That's the way the Democrats enforce their ideology in the party. And the reason why you never see Republicans, even in majorities, vote for pro-life stuff is because they know the pro-life movement's a wholly owned subsidiary of the Republican Party. So I'm not saying don't go after rhinos. I think you have to go after rhinos, but there's a point where it's too far. And to me, I think going after Thomas Massie, calling him a traitor, is going way, way too far. And I think these ideological purity tests where anyone doesn't agree with me on everything is my enemy, is taking it way too far. And the vitriol between the Trump and DeSantis campaigns is not going to end well for anybody.
No, it's retarded.
Yeah. Jay asking Republicans giving up to lose elections for the next 4 to 8 years. Seems that way. At least at the on the high levels. Not in my county though. Not at the grassroots level. We're doing great. We've built a better party than we've had in years.
Oh yeah, us too.
That's how that goes. Yeah. Well, that's not saying much though. But same here. Same with us. That's true.
No, I'm being sarcastic right now.
Oh, okay.
We're dealing with stupid.
Yeah. You can talk about it if you like. If you don't want to, I understand.
No.
Yeah. Oh, what else do we have this week, folks? A couple other stories. Here's a strange story. Let me see if I can find this. This was one of the most bizarre. Jay says, my question was in reference to the Michigan GOP infighting that you were discussing. Well, we will see. We will see. They want to rout us in the primaries, is what they want to do. The question is what will happen if they don't beat us in the primaries, and we'll see.
Who is they and who is us? Can you not use pronouns so people know?
The DeVos money, Rick Snyder's money, the HRCC, GOP money. Let's put it that way.
Want to route who? The grassroots.
Yeah, the grassroots, the MAGA people, the the RJ
Ultra MAGA,
Regans of the world.
MAGA and
Yeah.
Ultra MAGA.
Yeah. Anyway, tell me if you've ever seen a weirder story than this, or a weirder headline. Hey, where'd it go? Oh, hold on, let me find this article. Okay, now I gotta actually put it onto the browser. Yeah, look at this. Meet Sergei Nariskin. Oh no, that's not the right article. Hold on. There's an article. This is the one. Meet Ukraine's possibly dead spy master.
Possibly dead.
Possibly dead. You have to bend a story at some point to accommodate a headline. Meet Ukraine's possibly dead spy master. I mean, this just goes to show how contorted these people are getting with the reporting of what's going on in Ukraine, which for the past week has been an absolute disaster for Ukraine, just wall to wall. This can't go on for very many more weeks, and God knows what's going to happen next.
I see Zelensky just had an interview with who? NBC? NBC?
I don't know. Did he?
Yeah, talking about the spring offensive or whatever. I saw clips.
Ukraine to this day still does not admit that they are on the offensive right now, even though the whole world knows it's the offensive. Like, you see articles even in the mainstream media saying, yeah, the offensive is not going very well. And they're kind of, couching the language like that article we just had up on the screen. But it's just so weird to see them try to make good out of, like, this. The articles used to be saying, oh, they need to have their big breakthrough in the first 3 to 4 days. And now it's like we're now 2 weeks into the offensive and nothing is going right. And I don't know what they're going to do with expectations on this, but it just gets more and more and more bizarre. Here's another story. I'm going to pull this one up. I don't have it handy on my screen, but I'll just tell you, because I heard he's walked it back now. But the president of the Czech Republic did a whole thing where he made this like 5-minute remark saying, yeah, we need to do what Americans did to the Japanese during World War II and just start locking up Russian civilians everywhere. Which is weird because most Americans look back on the Japanese internment of World War II as like one of the most shameful things we did in our history. Mm-hmm. And the president of the Czech Republic is now saying, yeah, we should just lock up all Russian civilians just for our own sake, because they might be dangerous and we don't know, which is completely illegal in international law. That's collective punishment. You can't do that. There used to be a time when targeting athletes of another country was really bad. Like, that was the whole idea of the Olympics was, I know our countries are at war, but we'll have an athletic contest, and then it'll lower the temperature a little bit. And besides, they're just athletes competing. What's wrong with that? Now they're banning, the International Olympic Commission bans Russian athletes from competing as Russian. And again, it's just the escalation, just getting more and more and more out of control. Mm-hmm. And he did walk it back, and eventually, because I think there was a lot of backlash, because sane people are like, yeah, actually, turns out that the internment of the Japanese in World War II was a terrible thing, and America regrets it badly, and you probably don't want to do the same thing. So there was that. What else? Anything else been going on in Ukraine lately? I don't know. I mean, it's just the news is just all horrible losses on the Ukrainian side, but no sense talking about that right now. It's
what was the tweet that you had about the 2 things that are now like not true or true? Some tweet that you were gonna show maybe tonight about the Ukrainian, about Putin. 2 things that aren't true or
about Putin.
Hold on.
I don't know. Yeah, let me know what you were thinking that was in reference to. I did have on my list, there was a story that came out a few days ago that this Russian hacking group was going to take down the entire European banking system in 48 hours. I was like, this is BS, because if they were going to do it, they wouldn't announce it.
Yeah. Oh, ACLU, the child killing stuff.
Oh, the ACLU story, yeah. So,
and Whitmer's session, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So, so those aren't about Putin, but those are
what
2 other headlines.
I didn't hear that either.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll get into that, but I thought you were saying there's something about Ukraine. Yeah, we
there
do
was,
have some other...
but now I'm reading your notes. Sorry, everyone.
Okay. Yeah. We do have some other stories for you guys today. If you guys haven't seen this one, the ACLU has always been pretty bad. Especially in the last 10 years, they've gone from being a civil liberties organization to being an abortion and immigration organization. But this is kind of beyond the pale. So the ACLU posted a very angry tweet the other day. The state of Florida never provided medically necessary gender affirming care. That's that's code for sex change operations, to Dwayne Owen, causing her enormous suffering and violating her right to be free from cruel and unusual punishment for the more than 30 years she was in state custody. And of course, the ACLU argues that these people who committed crimes as men but now are saying they're women, should be sent to women's prisons. You might wonder, what did Dwayne Owen spend more than 30 years prior to being executed do? And fortunately, Twitter's helpful community notes clarify he stabbed a 14-year-old girl 18 times and then raped her corpse and then went on to commit another murder again years later. Thank you, community notes. I'm sure the ACLU appreciates seeing that on their tweet, but this is now the ACLU defending a child murdering corpse rapist. So that is the ACLU for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure what else to add about that other than the ACLU is a disgraceful organization. I'd be ashamed for anyone that's ever given them money. But there you go. So there is that. Did have one follow up on the primary stuff. Whitmer has said she is confident that the primary will occur on February 27th, which means she is confident the legislature will adjourn before the end of the year. And I think it's no later than the end of November. Let's see what it says here. They would have to adjourn, 90 days before February 27th. So end of November. So there's a few ways this could happen. Way number one is they adjourn at the end of this month, and then she calls them back in the fall as a special session. The other possibility is they adjourn at the end of November and just take December off, which I wouldn't put it past the Democrats to do. Hey, it's a free taxpayer-funded vacation. Time to go knock on doors on the taxpayer's dime. Theoretically, they could adjourn at the end of November and just immediately reconvene a special session, but that might be a little too hard to explain. But then again, who knows? It's the Democrats we're talking about.
I remember what it was, like 2 times that Russia had like peace deals.
There was a big story today or this week. So this delegation from Africa.
2 startling revelations this week about Ukraine. 1, Putin sought early peace deal that would enforce Minsk, return Donbass, lease Crimea, quote unquote, in exchange for purging Azov, ending Donbass war, and no NATO. Which
that's what you were talking about. Okay, yeah. So
Ukraine agreed until its own negotiator got assassinated within. Number 2, Putin sought a second peace in Istanbul when Ukraine signed, then welched on due to Western pressure. This really is a pure proxy war. Biggest sufferers will be the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Barnes yesterday.
Yeah, that's what Robert Barnes tweeted. So the story this week was that there was this delegation, this peace delegation from Africa, which went, and I think I know South Africa was among them. There's a few others. They went first to Ukraine and then to Russia. So the first they met with Zelensky, at which point the Ukrainians told them, "You better get down. There's a Russian bomb coming in right now. They're trying to kill us all." And the president of South Africa went on, immediately announced that this appears to have been just a ridiculous lie because they heard no explosions and nothing happened. So that was getting off on the right foot. Then they went to Russia, and Putin shows them the documents. I don't know if I tweeted them yet. Well, here it is. And it shows that when they had these peace negotiations on April 1st, and Boris Johnson rushed to Ukraine to say, "Don't do this, do not do this. We're going to have your back. We're going to destroy Russia with you. You'll be the tip of the spear." Huh?
He just got a new job. Keep going, Boris Johnson.
Yeah. We kind of already knew this, that Ukraine was going to take the peace deal in April of last year, and the West pressured them not to. And as a result of that, we've had this war going on for the past 12 years. The country's been destroyed, and that's what the West thinks of their proxies. Mm-hmm. But also, I guess Barnes' other point is just that, this is clearly this is a war that we demanded to have happen. And had we not intervened, Russia and Ukraine would have made peace. And the peace would have been, let's see, removing the Nazis from their military. Sounds okay to me. Ending the war no NATO in Ukraine, which was the agreement that NATO agreed to like 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They just broke all their peace deals. And that was it. Oh, and enforced the Minsk agreements, which Ukraine broke. So, yeah, all to say, everything could have been prevented, and it was we, the West, who prevented it from happening. So, completely crazy. But here we are. So we'll see how the offensive goes. I think it's going to go very badly. And the question is, what's going to happen next? Because we have these leaders who cannot admit their own failings, and I don't see any way. That they're going to have anything to show you for Ukraine, other than if they decide to go nuclear, in which case we have global Armageddon, and that's how dangerous this is. So what was there's one other thing we want to talk about this week.
What happened in Hamtramck?
Oh yeah, in Hamtramck. So this is kind of interesting. This goes to, some people have talked about, the Democrats actually have a totem pole of where all of their special interest groups fit on, all of their grievance groups go. So, you know, you have blacks, Latinos, homosexuals, union members, or not union members, union bosses. And clearly blacks are at the bottom of that totem pole. They treat them like they're slaves. So whenever there's conflict, blacks always get the short end of the stick. See, for example, redistricting. But now, to make clear, there's a fight brewing between the Muslim community in Hamtramck, which has just banned LGBTQ plus flags from publicly owned flagpoles. I have a feeling what they're actually banning was all non-government flags. Here's the quote from the guy. What? You guys are welcome, but why do you have to have the flag on government property to be represented? You're already represented. We already know who you are. The All Muslim Council said pride flag clashes with the beliefs of some members of the faith. Businesses and residents aren't prohibited from displaying a pride flag on their property. We want to respect the religious rights of our citizens. Chaduri said Hamtramck population 2,700 is entirely surrounded by Detroit. Yes, we know. It's a very multi-ethnic area. And this might be setting up a clash between the Council on American Islamic Relations and maybe the ACLU will sue Hamtramck. Maybe the child murdering, corpse raping defenders will.
Can you scroll up a little bit? I want to.
Yeah. We'll take the city of
I'm sorry,
Hamtramck.
I apologize. Scroll down the other way. I wanted to see that full last paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
The CARE guy. I wonder if it's the same guy that we did a candidate forum in Michigan branch of CARE. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a candidate forum in Canton, and
Yeah.
the guy there was from CARE, local CARE. I'm wondering if it's the same guy.
I don't know. Flags carry symbolism. Those symbols carry social and political messages, Waleed said. Yeah, and they disgraced the White House the other day with the maybe during the entire month with the LGBTQ plus flag. You know, and again, if Trump was back in the White House, would you want a Trump sign, a Trump flag flying at the front of the White House? You don't want to change. You don't want to allow the Democrats to destroy precedent. You should call them out for doing the wrong thing. So who knows? We'll see where this goes. My money is on the LGBTs.
No way. You think?
As far as who the Democrats are going to support? Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what the ACLU does. We'll see how the story develops.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. Okay. I thought you meant who's going to win out. I think the city of Hamtramck is going to win out, but.
Oh, legally, sure. But I mean, in the court of the Democrats, they're going to view this as a problem, and Muslims need to be re-educated, and on and on and on. So we'll see.
Well, yeah.
So there's that for you.
Well, that's just carrying over from the 2022, right? In Dearborn, right? With all the dads and stuff that were speaking out. I mean, it's kind of.
There's been a lot of these. There's been these around the country too, where they're targeting because Muslims.
Oh yeah, where was it in California? Was it like the Armenian dads or something? Yeah, like.
Yeah. So. I'll just say the Democrats keep going, guys. We love it.
Yeah, that was impressive.
They're alienating huge. They're alienating huge portions of their base doing this kind of crap. And that's the thing we have to play up. You know, one of the things.
I think, and people are realizing, you know what? Maybe I'm not. I don't think I am a Democrat actually. Like, there's a lot of people. You talk about what they stand for,
Yeah.
It's not what that party stands for now, right?
Yeah. I think the contrast between the old Democrats, which Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may be bringing out to remind them how far they've come, or not how far they've come, how far they've gone from their principles, could be refreshing. Maybe to close the show, we should close with that clip from RFK Jr. Talking about
people can watch. It's about 5 minutes. I mean, they can watch the whole thing.
Yeah,
or not,
it's like about
right?
a 5-minute clip, but we can let it play out. It's kind of a campaign. It's been made into a campaign video, so it's kind of campaigny. We're not endorsing him, guys. Don't freak out. But it's
this was another clip that was part of my Father's Day thing, because he brings up his dad and his uncle a lot, right? To kind of show people, like you said, how far everything has moved, that everything's shifted. So yeah, it's not an endorsement.
Yeah, there was a going back to even Daniel Ellsberg from that cold open. There's interesting comment. This is actually a recording from H.R. Haldeman at the Nixon Oval Office, and he was talking about he's actually talking about a point Donald Rumsfeld made about why the Pentagon Papers were so dangerous. And he says Rumsfeld was making this point this morning to the ordinary guy. All this is a bunch of gobbledygook, but out of the gobbledygook comes a very clear thing. You can't trust the government. You can't believe what they say, and you can't rely on their judgment. And the implicit infallibility of presidents, which has been an accepted thing in America, is badly hurt by this, because it shows that people do things the president wants to do, even though it's wrong. And the president can be wrong. Well, it's hard to even harken back to the time when the institution of the presidency was respected, but it was. And it used to be that if the Democrats were in power, Republicans were the loyal opposition, and vice versa. That's gone now, and that's never coming back. And the Democrats did this. So on that note, I guess we'll close the show, and then we'll just play the clip out to the end. So is there anything else we wanted to, is that all we got for this week? That's all I've got, I know. And otherwise we'll, anything else we can talk about?
It went poof in my head. I don't remember what
it always happens. Every time a show ends, I always remember something I meant to say and forgot to say. Oh, well. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all you do for liberty. Until next time, peace out.
55 years ago last month, I sat as a 14-year-old boy behind my father as he announced his campaign.
Hold on, guys. I gotta figure out how to make that play correctly. That's not right. Okay.
55 years ago last month, I sat as a 14-year-old boy behind my father as he announced his campaign for presidency of the United States. And my father at that time was in many ways the same position that I'm in today. He was running against a president of his own party. He was running against a war. He was running at a time of unprecedented polarization in our country. And he had no chance of winning. My father, when he declared, had not a single molecule in him that he believed that he could win the Democratic nomination. And the day he died, he won the California primary, the most urban state in this country, and the same day the South Dakota primary, the most rural. He had succeeded in uniting America. I was with my dad when he died in Los Angeles, and we brought him back to New York, and then we brought him from Penn Station in New York to Union Station in Washington, D.C. Normally that's a 2.5-hour train ride, but it took us 7.5 hours because there were 2 million people on the tracks. And that I will never forget as a 14-year-old boy what I saw from the windows of that train that day. In all of the urban train stations in Trenton and Newark and Philadelphia and Baltimore, they were crowded with black and white men singing the battle hymn of the Republic. God talks to human beings through many vectors, through each other, through organized religion, through the great books of those religions, through wise people, through art and music and literature and poetry, but nowhere with such detail and grace and color and joy is through creation. When we destroy a species, when we destroy a special place, we're diminishing our capacity to sense the divine, understand who God is, and what our own potential is as human beings. We deserve a president in this country who cares about these things and who talks about these things to the American people. My father, when he came back one time from the Delta, he said, we were all at the dinner table when he came in, and he said, I was in a tar paper shack today. It was smaller than this dining room, and there were 2 families living there, and the children get 1 meal a day. And when you get older, I want you to help those people. And when we would go into Southeast Washington or Appalachia, he would say to us, these are your people. These are Kennedy people. He said, the other people, the big shots, the corporations, the millionaires don't need the Kennedys. They have lobbyists, they have PR firms, they have lawyers. And he said, these are your people, and these are the people you need to spend your life helping. And when I'm president, I'm going to be president for those people. We're going to take back this country. You give me a piece of ground and a sword, and I am going to take back this country with your help, the help of all the homeless Republicans and Democrats and independents who are Americans first. Thank you all very much.